We are MythVision. Welcome back to MythVision Podcast. I'm the host, Derek Lambert, and we have our co-host slash guest, Karen De La Carriere, joining us today. She has many years of experience in Scientology. She was on the boat with L. Ron Hubbard himself. She knows the inside scoop and has very good friends who were also on the inside. And there's a collective of ex-Scientologists, if you will, on the internet that are speaking out against this cult and its harms done to humanity at large. So up front, I'll say, stay away from it. But as we lead into the topic today, Karen, you're going to tell us something that is kind of up to date that our good friend Tony Ortega, and if you go to tonyortega.org, you can find out a lot about this yourself. Tony covers all these topics in depth. He's a good friend of ours. So be sure to go check out his blog and subscribe to Karen's YouTube channel if you want to hear updates coming from her over time, just to help the community as well. So do that. Karen, what's going on with this PPP? What is it and what happened?
The biblical mantra of Scientology is money, money, cash, make money, make others make more money. And PPP stands for Pay Protection Plan. When the government saw the pandemic of COVID causing a huge stay-at-home orders, mandatory, businesses couldn't stay open, restaurant, you couldn't. There was such a clampdown on normal life and livingness that the government invented a program, because after all, the government prints money, the Federal Reserve prints the cash, to give out huge sums of money to businesses so that businesses would not collapse. The little bar owner or restaurant owner or gym or nail salon got a bunch of cash to keep paying staff even if they didn't come to work, and to pay the rent, because many people are renting a space. All these guys that rent a room in a shopping mall, how are they going to pay the shopping mall the rent? They would collapse. So the government gave them these. Mostly these loans were going to be just forgiven. So they call it loan, but it was really a gift. Now, Scientology has pretended and masqueraded as a religion, a church. They keep talking about their parishioners and their ecclesiastical doctrines. They flaunt and pump their pretended religion. It's religious cloaking. That's all it is. It's cloaking as a religion. And they got multi-million dollars from PPP loans as a business. Dennis, could you just show 2 or 3 pictures with the amount of money that some of these got? So here's Scientology absolutely claiming it's not a business, it's a religion. It tells the courts, it pleads with judges, it's religious doctrine. But they didn't blink an eye, scooping up multi-millions from the government for business, as a business. Can you show 2 or 3, or will you do it later?
Yeah, I'll do it later, just to give me the images, because in particular, one of the things that I'm looking at here is there's the founding Church of Scientology of Washington, D.C., founding Church of Scientology, 184,837 they got by Linder TD Bank. Church of Scientology New York got 184,000. Mission of Bel Air at Florida got between 150,000, and the Bel Air mission told the government that its loan would help it retain 39 jobs. The New York org said it would save 98 jobs. Church of Scientology of Harlem, 133,000. Lender of that was Bank of America. The Purification Rundown Sweat outfits called drug rehabs received about $1 million. The Church of Scientology of Michigan amount, 91,000. the lender, the Huntington National Bank, and Citizens Commission for Human Rights, the Los Angeles-based nonprofit which operates the Psychiatry in an Industry of Death Museum on Sunset Boulevard, also received a loan of $150,000 to $350,000.
You know, if there's money that they can smell, they're going to grab it. Scientology's entire mentality is to scoop up that money. Now, where did that money go, Derek? Where did it go? You never have to, there's no audit ever on what you did with the money. What do you think some little mission in Bel Air, Florida got 100? Where do you think that money went? There's no evidence one thin dime was paid to any staff. The hierarchy just scoops it up with their octopus tentacles. It's gone with the wind. Now, the United States government was a bit donkey in these. Do you know that the prisoners learned the scam? Prisoners in jail got over $1 billion of this PPP.
No way.
$1 billion. It's all over the web. Well, Scientology has gotten $3 billion. The scammers and the con artists know how to scoop up the money. I just want to end off this PPP loan fraud with one little anecdote. I live in a village, a neighborhood called Los Feliz, and it's most famous because it's at Griffith Park. Griffith Park is 40 times the size of Central Park, which gives you an idea of how gigantic it is, right? The zoo, Los Angeles Zoo, is in Griffith Park. And the zoo, you can walk around the zoo all day long. You'll never come to the end of the zoo. It just goes on. And that's only 5% of Griffith Park. So Griffith Park is huge. Los Feliz, it's a fabulous neighborhood. Derek, if you can't live by the ocean and you're in Los Angeles, people want to live at Griffith Park. Those are the two most favorites, the ocean or Griffith Park, because there are hiking trails and coyotes and eagles, and just you in 10 minutes from downtown Los Angeles, you're in a forest. You're in the woods in Griffith Park. You can walk forever in Griffith Park and you're in nature, right in the heart of Los Angeles. So they decided to have a mission. Scientology was going to have a mission in Griffith Park. And there was this actor called Patrick Renna. Came into a huge inheritance. When Scientology knows you got an inheritance, the tentacles are going to grab it. And Patrick did something. He was guilty of something he did which he wouldn't want disclosed. But remember that Scientology operates without a conscience. They have no conscience, none. It's a very unfair advantage to you and me because we have that little voice in our head. And if we do something bad, or we want to do something that isn't good, we have a conscience. And the conscience pulls us back. We don't go and do something evil because we know what's right and wrong. Scientology has no conscience. None. It can do whatever, like Aleister Crowley that we discussed in a video. Do what thou want shall be the whole of the law. The law in Scientology is, we've got great technology. We're going to do whatever we want, whenever we want. So Patrick Renna was blackmailed because they had some goods on him. Fork over your inheritance and buy this building. And this is the building, walking distance from my home. called Scientology Mission. Mission of Los Feliz, this great swanky neighborhood at Griffith Park. Property is very expensive in Los Feliz, high end. So he buys this building, and it's walking distance from my home. So now and again I peek. Parking lot, of course, is completely empty. And then when I last looked, there's a sign. And the sign says, open by appointment only twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays between 1 and 3. This is a so-called Church of Scientology, open twice a week between 1 and 3 by appointment only. So you have to call for them to open. Do you know that they got a PPP loan?
They're slick.
PPP loan, probably 150,000. I've sent you the document. They have no staff. They're open twice a week. They're open for 2 hours twice a week, and they got a 6-figure PPP loan. They have no staff to pay. They're not even open.
Yeah.
I just you the degree of scam.
So it's 150,000 up to 350,000, and I think it's funny and clever in an interesting way that they're only opening twice a week for like 2 hours. So a total of 4 hours that they're saying that they're open, which means they're willing to operate during those 2 hours for twice a week. For 4 hours a week, technically, that they're willing, which means they must know something about the law. Like, to be an operational business, you need to at least be open for this many hours, or at least be operational for those, which means that they're saying, look, we're willing to make the appointments for that long. No more, though. Notice that they're like only this window, which means they figured out the simplest, least amount of way. It seems that there could be a connection here to how do we get this PPP, ensure that this is still going to get us this loan, make us look like an operational business, but at the end of the day, nobody's really coming. Nobody's really showing up. It doesn't seem.
You got it. Derek, you absolutely understand and you duplicate it. You said that so perfectly. Now, while Scientology huffs and puffs of their multi-million-dollar members in this nice high-end neighborhood, they can't even get enough traffic to open more than twice a week for 2 hours. I mean, if you look at the evidence, what Tony Ortega did is he got all kinds of his daily viewers to go to different orgs and photograph their parking lots. So he's got every, Cincinnati, Ohio, and Phoenix, Arizona, empty. While and this is before the pandemic. This is not just empty because of the pandemic. So money, even though a lot of people crashed and got, I didn't. People stayed at home and bought Thomas Kincaid paintings. They were home. They had lots of time to look through my gallery. I didn't crash at all in the pandemic. I tell you, I'm really blessed. I am blessed that I escaped the cult and didn't have to work at McDonald's flipping burgers like they promised me I would if I left.
Yeah.
I have thrived. I have gone up. Now, let's get back to Scientology. I wanted to tell you 2 stories because I've got nice pictures. The first story is of a Danish girl called Carol Nyburg. They recruit all these Norwegian, Danish, Swedish, because they have their major hub in Europe is in Copenhagen. They have CO campus and they recruit. So Carol came from Denmark. And she had a very engaging, sweet personality, but she was a sales agent for accommodations. When you go to Clearwater, you have to live in one of their hotels. You're not allowed to do Airbnb or stay in a cheaper motel. You have to stay in there. So they scoop up not only your money for counseling, but they are a hotel operation. And Carol went through just extreme pressure. Ugh, pressure for money. Does Islam and all these other things you're constantly airing just, I don't hear the pressure for money. Give me a quick little blurb. Is there a huge, intense pressure? See, Carol had to, between Thursday to Thursday, she had to make X amount of money. And the Fort Harrison have a penthouse on the 10th floor. And if she, you know, it's probably $15,000, probably $2,000 a day now. And you get your own valet and your own room service. If she didn't rent that out, she was in trouble no matter. The money pressure was beyond anything a human being could tolerate.
Yeah, no, not on that level. Not on that. I've heard some people feel the pressure a little. And there's been some sparks, but not systematically the way that you're describing it. Yes, there are money hungry and they bribe you, make you feel guilty about not giving 10% or something like that. But what you are describing is extortion on a whole different level. I've not heard anything on that level. I could be wrong. I've had some people who make comments from time to time and I'm like, huh, I never thought about that. But yeah, I haven't heard of anything this is mob level extortion.
Yes. So, and Carol said if she didn't make her quota after working 14, 16 hours a day, the sales agents had to clean greasy pots and pans in the kitchen for 1 hour at 1 in the morning. Sleep deprivation because they didn't make their money quota, had to scrub greasy pots and pans. Carol put up with a lot. She, like me, she believed in the cause, but she had young kids. And as David Miscavige became more and more ruthless, he cut off all family time. Even the 1 hour a day that parents were allowed to mingle with their children, cut off. Nope, no family time. Work, produce, slaves. And because she couldn't see her children, she fled. She escaped. She went to a nearby hotel with her 2 little kids that she picked up. And they didn't find her. But after a while, she thought, you know, I signed a billion-year contract. I need to square it up. I need to. So she went back. There's a lot of people, they escape and they go back. They go back to only escape again, which she did. But she goes back. She was gone for 2 weeks. And they were happy. They wanted the revenue. She was a high earner, producer for them. So they said, we're not even going to send you to the RPF, the slave program to discipline you. We're not even going to. Just go back and make money. And they talked and said, you know, we need to give you a sec check to find out what you were doing, and an interrogatory. And she had a sexual encounter in the 2 weeks she was gone. And she confessed this to them. Not only did she have a sexual encounter, but it was with what Scientology call a wog. A wog is someone who's not a Scientologist. It's a slur. It's like the N-word. A wog. Yo, he's dating a wog? A wog is an unenlightened non-Scientologist. And when they found out Carol had sexual intercourse with a wog, oh no, that's RPF. They couldn't, even if she made money, they were more horrified that she had sex with a wog than the fact that she escaped.
What in the world? This is what makes me think that while they're money greedy, completely mobster type, they really believe in the BS that they're saying too. It's this weird connection between what people would say, they're just a fraud, they're just a fraud, they're just this, that. No, they are fraud and superstitious, completely both. It is, you know, people ask me all the time, Karen, is Joseph Smith a con artist? Mm-hmm. And you can go in history and find out that he had even been charged for like some magic, like he's trying to find hidden treasure or something. And he's like, there's court case that they found against the prophet Joseph Smith. And in his life, there's a lot of times where money and trying to get money and trying to be this and power and money and this and that. But people go, did he really believe in his own stuff? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. And I'm convinced he did. That doesn't mean he wasn't a con artist. And that doesn't mean he wasn't a fraudster and that he wasn't in some sense really convinced of his beliefs as well as ripping people off and getting money. And I think this sounds like a lot of what we're hearing from David Miscavige and these other people in the church. They really believe in the nonsense and they really are con artists at the same time. It's wild.
It's not mutually exclusive. You
exactly.
Beautifully spoken. Very good. Carol said that one thing in the culture of Scientology is to punish you using your body. So if you backflash, let's say you're in this prison program called RPF, if you answer back or if you do something that is not productive, you get what they call lapse. Lapse means you have to run, say, from the ground floor to the top floor, circle around the parking garage, all the way to the top and back, and that's one lap. A lap is an assigned measurement distance that you have to only run, not allowed to walk. You have to run. So if you're sentenced to 10 laps, right now, in real time, you do 10 laps. You can also be ordered to do sit-ups. It's a sort of, parents sometimes give their kids a timeout. But this is a timeout using even if the woman is 60 years old, she has to do press-ups nonstop. 50 press-ups right now. That's a Scientology punishment.
Oh.
Carol said the punishment started being because she couldn't do laps, something called apple jacks or jack flips. And basically it's jumping up and down, up and down, up and down 100 times. Like you're on a trampoline. This is an immediate punishment for not making your quota.
They're POWs. These.
So then they escalated the Applejack punishment. And do you know what they did, Derek? They imported from Israel an army drill sergeant. They were already starting to be more and more militaristic. The SEAL crew had to march like they were in an army. How is this religious? And the Israeli drill sergeant started imposing certain drills. The crew were electrified. You know, the crew go completely silent. You could cut the silence with a knife, but everyone is too scared of saying anything because you'll be knowledge reported. Your best friend will turn you. No one can say anything. You can't speak because the punishments could get worse and worse and worse. You can't tell. Now, why would Scientology import an Israeli army advanced drill sergeant to knock in some heavy drills into the crew? I'll tell you why. The crew have already signed a gazillion documents that they can never, ever reveal what goes on behind closed doors. So they're pretty sure they can just do whatever they want because nobody's going to speak. It's just muzzled and gagged. From day one in Scientology, when you join staff, you're signing that if you ever reveal what happens inside, $50,000 you will pay for each offense.
Oh, no.
They've signed all these. They've signed all these. Anyway, Carol came back, and then this time, by the way, she's leading a wonderful life. She found a new husband. She's a happy ending. She worked for it all for 23, 24 years, and her escape was two escapes. She did 2 escapes. And her daughter, that little girl that couldn't get any family time, her daughter has completely cut her off like a leper. And her daughter is an enslaved Scn member. Daughter would probably be about 22, 23 years old. So she served the cult 23 years.
And lost her daughter.
Lost her daughter.
It is so ridiculous. I mean, this whole thing is just so ridiculous. I hope more people are seeing this, and I hope that people will start to realize what's wrong with this whole thing.
Put up a couple of pictures of Carol. The other one I want to tell you about is Harvey. I'm getting old. I get blank on names. Who's the second person? Who's the second Reg I wanted to tell you about?
You only said I have 2, and you started with Carol, and I don't remember the second.
Oh, okay. Hi, Levy. I got it. Hi. H-Y. Hi, Levy. Oh, boy. Hi, Levy told about the agony of being a sales agent. You know, we hear of all these multi-millions that they get in, but the people that bring the money in are driven like slaves, literally. And Hi Levy had to, back in the 90s, produce $200,000 a week. And if he didn't, the first thing they do is cut off your sleep and make you do very, very hard labor in the middle of the night, cleaning, the kitchen and this and that. And one thing Hi Levy revealed, which many people don't know, is when you're sitting in a booth with a salesperson, it's all wired, and somebody's listening in to monitor how you're doing. Basically, it's like to correct you if you're not getting the money. And in your ear, you hear obscenities screamed at you. Come on, they've got the money. We've already checked it out. They've got $35,000 in an IRA. Get the money. Huh?
Just so everybody knows, what you're actually suggesting is Hi is not, this isn't like his job to go, he works for this large corporation somewhere. No, his job is to extort the money from their own members.
Yes.
That they know, because they have their social, they have their background, they have their bank information. They know Billy Bob has $250,000. We want 200,000 of it. So we'll leave him 50,000 and we'll get that out later. But we need you to get 200,000 of his 250,000 ASAP. So we need you to go do your job. And so he was his job was to be a con and suck the money out of these people. Okay, go ahead. I just want everyone to know. Yeah.
And all their sales agents are treated incredibly like with a whip. They have to bring in the cash or else. You would think that they would reward them for being these huge money earners. Mm-hmm. But it's this kind of pressure that made them go very criminal. And most of the sales agents in recent years went completely criminal. In order to just get some sleep, they would bill a credit card that was on file for a non-existent approval. The person that owned the credit card didn't authorize them to take another $12,000. They just billed it. And then the person would call up and say, what is this charge? I didn't authorize it. However, if you demand a refund, it's instant declare SP.
Man.
Lose your children, lose your relatives, lose your friends.
I mean,
you can't.
No matter how many times I hear this, and I've heard this, it's shocking every time to think about this. And it's ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. I'd love to see this thing fall apart. I mean, literally, I'd like to see this whole thing be destroyed. It's just so ridiculous. It's just, I can't even, never heard anything like this on this level, that it's just, and it's they get away with it. Why the whole church does not get punished for this in some way? It just, no, that person. So they're probably going to shit on the people who are the salesmen, because they're the ones who are caught firsthand doing these things, while they're the ones really behind them, driving them to do this and requiring them in order to do that. So that Scientology's hands are washed and your friend High is in trouble, technically.
High passed away a few years ago, just a short few years ago, but he went to the Tampa Bay Times and he revealed the pressure for money, and he described it so exquisitely, which showed his life of misery. And from morning till night, he had to extort money, and it was like he was in a container. But this wasn't just isolated High Levy. This is what happens to sales agents. That's why they have 3 million sitting around in actual cash. They probably have a lot, well, maybe not. I think they were bleeding some of this during the pandemic, because I don't think people were giving them tons of money during it. Now, one of the criminal acts, which has been exposed beautifully by Tony Ortega, is they would find some older man who dabbled in some Scientology 20, 30 years ago, and maybe he lives in Hawaii. I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah.
This is an actual example. So they buy his plane ticket and they tell him, come on in. We found you have a few free hours. You've got like 5 hours of counseling you can have. We looked up your account and you've got this. Come on in. We'll even pay your airfare and your hotel. And the poor sucker comes in on a plane ticket bought by them. And what they do, and they've done it over and over and over again on an older person, they say, we need $70,000. And he laughs. I don't have that kind of credit. And they said, don't worry. We've got it all wired. What they do is they open multi-credit cards all at the same time for $10,000. And if he has clean credit, he'll be approved. And then another card, it's all done in the 1 hour or 30 minutes. And $70,000 immediately goes to the cult of Scientology. So Tony Ortega has exposed this over and over. And then the guy is saddled. Oh, and about 15,000 of that is books. They force him to take an L. Ron Hubbard library. And there's pictures of all of them. So the reason their sales agents go criminal and rob these elderly people, as long as they have good credit, they gouge them for all this money. Chase Manhattan Bank was a real sucker for, and you know, the person can't pay it back. But their computers isolated just how much this was all going to Scientology. And David Miscavige actually did, when he pretended that he didn't know any of this was going on, first of all. And what he did is he removed every sales agent that participated in the con artist scam of making elderly people take out $70,000 in credit in 1 hour. It happened over and over and over again. Many stories on Tony Ortega's blog explains this. And now Tony has an insider leaking this inside story of the cult on what they call a Chase wave. That's just a nickname. Chase Manhattan is one of the banks, but they also Wells Fargo, Bank of America. So what David Miscavige did is he expelled some of these regs, claiming that they put the church in danger by doing these charges. So this is the con. They would pay the airfare and bring in someone with clean credit and then make $70,000 to $75,000 as a parasite, leeching their credit. And, you know, the cult forces a person to give their password for their bank account and give permission to access all their credit cards. They're actually talking. They don't trust the semi-senile guy to handle and push. They do it. They say, I'm the representative here. I've got full permission to act. You know, I've been given the authority. And this is what they were doing for years. So when people say, how did they get these millions? They get these millions through repeated fraud and their thirst for money, their hunger. You see, they don't count last week's money. Last week's, that's the past. What are we making this week? They're bound and determined to make a few million every week. And if an entity flounders, the staff are put on rice and beans for food 3 times a day. That's what happened in Clearwater. Rice and beans, because your revenue didn't matter that they're sitting with huge sums. Derek, the entity is falling apart. That's the good news.
I mean, all I can say is get the word out, share this out there, get people aware of what's happening in Scientology. I can guarantee you with this taking place at some point, this has got to stop. Something's going to change the whole game soon. And go check out our friend Tony Ortega. I even looked it up. Chase Wave here. He's got plenty on these. So be sure to go and check out his blog. Subscribe. There's all sorts of insanity going on. And so he's a good friend of ours, as well as subscribe to her channel. Please subscribe to Karen De La Carrier's channel. She's got amazing material. She goes into a lot of stuff. She teams up with Tony and other people as well. Endless videos. You can go on and on and on, and you will have a blast on her YouTube channel. So look at how much material there is. Look at how much, there's plenty. You can get lost in going into all of this that you see here. So be sure to do that. And then consider also joining the Patreon, MythVision, to support us here. Because this material that we're doing right now, as you're listening to it publicly on YouTube, this is on Patreon first. So you help support us and what we're doing. Look, there she is in her captain outfit. So seriously, Karen, any final words you'd like to give to the audience before we let you go?
Everybody watching this is far more intelligent than me. I was a donkey for 40 years. 40 years in the cult. Whether I had a brain aneurysm or if you haven't spent 2 weeks in a cult, you're far more cleverer than I ever was. I was the donkey. But I'm out of it now. And I'm truly happy to be a repeated guest with Derek, because long after I'm dead and gone, I'm an old lady now. Long after I'm dead and gone, these videos run forever on a channel.
Yep.
Long after Derek has passed, the channels never come down. I've got some YouTube videos of people who passed. Like Levy tells his horror stories as a sailor. He's dead and gone, but his voice is alive, you know. So please learn from us. More than anything, the channel is education. Save yourself from con artists. Save yourself from, tricksters and fraudsters, especially people that want your money. That's the telltale sign.
Yeah.
They're moving forward, just like these, there's a lot of con going on in the area of romance on the web. And these poor lonely hearts, they meet someone, and then after only talking for a day or two, they say, could you just send me $500?
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it.
Right. Well, Scientology is no better a con than any of these internet con artists. They want your cash. Please be warned. You don't have to think of anything. Never mind the more advanced leakages of what they really believe and what Hubbard said. On an immediate basis, if there's an octopus tentacle reaching in for your cash, learn from Derek and me. Save your money from the cult. Bye-bye, everyone. Look forward to our next videos, Derek. Love you lots. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much, Karen. And never forget, ladies and gentlemen, we are MythVision.
Money. It was all about money. The person sitting there had no idea that the room was being listened into. My best year, I did 15 million. At the end of the day, if that money's not in the box, you failed.
Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard had no compunction about discussing religion and money in the same breath. Make money, he told staffers, and make other people produce so as to make money. Today, following in Hubbard's ideals, David Miscavige leads the Church of Scientology. Speaking to dozens of Scientology insiders, a St. Petersburg Times investigation has found the church takes in astonishing sums of money. For 16 years, Levy worked 12-hour days selling counseling services at the Church of Scientology's worldwide headquarters in Clearwater. Levy now speaks in unprecedented detail about the process and pressure to reach his $200,000 weekly quota by 2 p.m. every Thursday. He estimates his small team alone took in $100 million a year for the church.
A registrar, best way to describe it is basically a salesman. It's a sales function, okay? People come into the organization and they need to get service. Service costs money. The registrar works with them to basically, if you cut through all the stuff, he works out how they get it paid for. We would get a technical evaluation of what the person needed. The technical area would tell us he needs so many intensives. An intensive is 12 and a half hours of auditing, right? And that's how it was sold. He needs so many intensives. There was a sliding scale discount. The more you bought in one group, the higher the discount, and the less it cost you. I tried never to sell one intensive because that was the highest price. The latest price when I left in 2009, one intensive, now this is of upper level auditing, was $7,800. You got the part of the registration cycle where the person's got his estimate, he gets enlightened on the service, he gets to understand why he needs it, what it's going to do for him. Now, how do we pay for it? And you might say, well, I don't have any money. Most people said that, and in the end they paid you. A lot of repeat business, right? Maybe I've registered this guy for 10 years. I know him. I know his wife, I know his family, I know his kids. I know where he lives, I know how many cars he has. I know all about him. I know the 401ks that he always pulls the money out of. I know the college fund. I know everything that I've needed to know to get him to pay me money over 10 years. So, you've got a guy in front of you, and he says, I don't have any money. And you say, well, how do you know? Oh, because I know all my cards are maxed out. Well, let's check them. Now, one of two things. He doesn't want to check them because he knows he has credit available on them, but he doesn't want to use it. Or he forgot and didn't know. Or what I often found is he got an increase he didn't even know about because they gave it to him automatically. He never looks at his statement. I said, well, let's just check them out right now. I'll tell you what, you go have a cup of coffee, give me your cards. And maybe he had 6 or 8 cards and he didn't want to spend an hour calling them. I can do it in 10 minutes, right? So give me your cards and I'll need this information. Okay, good. Now, go have a cup of coffee, relax. I'll find out all the information and we'll get back together. So I make all the calls. I want to say, okay, you have $35,000 of available credit. They go, I do? Realize the money is just a means to achieving something the person wants. And it's a fair statement that nobody pays for something that isn't going to give them some benefit. Everything you buy, you expect it to give you a benefit. If you don't expect the benefit is worth the money, you won't buy it. Well, the benefits that we're giving in Scientology are priceless. Some of these things that people get handled, want to get handled, and do get handled, you couldn't put a price tag on it. It means to them a form of freedom. So where's the limit on what that's worth? So money is a very passionate subject. When you're talking about money, you can run into all sorts of emotions about it, right? If the guy really feels he's going to get this thing handled, and you really just get him to look at how much it's going to mean to him in his life and how different his life will be, he stops worrying about the money.
The church said if Levy focused on dollar amounts, he violated church policy. His job was to enlighten parishioners about Scientology, and he was reprimanded for going beyond that. Listening through hidden microphones, Levy's immediate supervisor, Kathy West, would sometimes call during private sessions.
She might say, listen, they have the money. Don't buy what they're telling you about how they don't have it. Ask her about, and she'd mention whatever account she knew they normally paid out of. That's how you'll get the money, right? Okay, thanks. So I melts that into the conversation to where they said, well, yeah, I do have that account, but I'd rather not use it. Okay, so now you handle their objection to that and you close them. Okay. Sometimes she would send the receptionist in with a note saying, you know, whatever she wanted to say. Sometimes she would call and yell and scream at me on the phone in the middle of the interview. You have to understand, the person sitting there had no idea that the room was being listened into. They had no clue. These people are sometimes telling me their deepest, darkest fears, emotions, upsets, secrets, because they trust me, because I've worked with them for years, and they know me, and I'm going to help them, and they know that. So they're willing to tell me all these things. They don't know somebody else is listening. My senior, the director of reservation, worked in another building, the Fort Harrison, the Oak Cove. So she ran me by telephone. She would call me very often. In a day, maybe I'd get anywhere between 20 and 100 phone calls. I mean, 100's exaggerating maybe a little bit. But certainly 20 was not out at all. 20 was like normal, maybe 30. And every time I reported income, fine. If I didn't report income for a while, and if my statistics were not in the range they needed to be, the escalation of the tone level of those conversations changed. From, come on, you got to get going here, to screaming, yelling, obscenities. The word in Scientology called interbulated. It means that the calmness with which you normally would comport yourself is gone, and it's just a mass of chaotic, random stuff flying around. Okay? Well, it was very much like that. And it would drag me to tears. It would push me to tears. I thought a pretty decent, strong person, but it demolished me.
Is the person on the other end of the phone talking in terms of getting people, individual service, or are they talking in terms of dollar amounts?
Money. It was all about money. That was all about money. You know, there was a lot of training that we had about how it wasn't all about money, and it was all valid training, and we did use it, and a lot of that was utilized. But I don't know how to put it. It's like, if you're fighting a war and you're talking about, taking prisoners. When the guy's sitting in front of you, you're going to shoot him and kill him dead. That's what you're supposed to do. Well, it's kind of like that. It's about helping people and getting them up the bridge and getting them serviced and getting them to improve their lives. But in the end, at the end of the day, if that money's not in the box, you failed. That's all you were measured on. My statistic was not number of people that I helped. My statistic that I was measured on was number of dollars gotten in. Very simple. Gross income.
The church said its system of monitoring staff through statistics is useful and effective. Further, the church said that microphones were used to ensure fundraising interviews are conducted according to church policy, which is publicly available to parishioners, and that fundraising interviews are conducted in accordance with Florida law. The church also said Sea Org discipline is comparable to that of other religions, and that West was never abusive to Levy. Constantly working, Levy took in $200 million during his time as a reg.
I almost never took any time off. I think in the time I was married, which was 12 years, I took off 2 or 3 days with my wife. I remember one year where I was number 2. It was like I was the new kid on the block and I was number 2 and I was proud of it. Sonia was always number 1. And I can't tell you the total amount she made. I would say it had to be somewhere between 25 and 30 million. My best year, I did 15 million. Most of the staff make $50 a week. 95% of the staff, $50 a week. And that's what we were making in the end. You know, so I'm making $50 and I'm regging $200,000-300,000. You knew when you joined you were getting paid $50 a week. You knew that. It wasn't like you were expecting anything different. And you knew you had a purpose, which was to help these people and to salvage what was happening in this society. That's what you cared about.
Most of Levy's descriptions of the activities of the church fundraisers are false, and his figures are clearly embellished, the church said. He is correct, however, when he states the church registrars believe they are helping parishioners. Once proud of the work he had done, Levy said his last few years at Flag were chaotic, especially after the release of the basics in 2007.
There was an atmosphere that was nuts, insane, and before that I was proud to associate myself with one of the top Scientology Sea Org organizations in the world. The top, basically. By the end, I didn't want anybody to know I had anything to do with it. Because of these huge quotas that were unforced beyond belief, the staff became frantic that they had to sell it. They had to. Now, everybody's doing it, so how do you manage to stay above it and be the one who makes the sale? Well, aside from all the gimmicky things about how you sell it to them in the first place, there was the person would arrive to the Flag land base, Flag Service Organization, and they were pounced on. Pounced from the minute their foot hit the tile of the lobby. When I left, the day that I got the official okay to go after 19 months of waiting for somebody to say it had enough sec checking, that we were done, we've looked at everything, signing all these documents about how I wouldn't say anything bad about anybody. And believe me, that scared me for a long time. I got outside, it was like what everybody takes for granted. To me, it was like, oh my God, I was free.
Reporting with Joe Childs and Tom Tobin, this is Maurice Rivenbark for the St. Petersburg Times.